Roll for Crit with a brand new podcast for you this week, the official podcast of the online store, rollforcrit.com, where you can watch, shop, and play. I'm Jonathan Estes.
I'm Will Keeler, and we've got some news today, but first, the weather. Meeple showers will continue into the afternoon, followed by a possible storm of a burn deck, so watch out for lightning bolts.
Yep, and then on Tuesday, it's going to be cloudy with a chance of randomness.
That's right, many dice falling in the sky.
Maybe that's how they do the weather. They just shuffle up a deck and they're like, it's probability. They'd roll a die. I don't know. The weather in this podcast, though, is going to be clear skies. It's going to be a nice fluorescently lit stories about board games. There was a big old convention this week, sort of. I mean, it was on the smaller side, but one of the bigger names. CMON. Hey, CMON. They had their own little expo in, I believe, in Atlanta. And they are showing off a bunch of their games exclusively CMON related. They didn't go into other territories.
I have a feeling.
You never know. And
here at CMON, we're showing off Fantasy Flight's new game.
It'd be a weird choice. A few that we're going to highlight that they show off look cool. First one that I'm excited about, that I think a lot of people are excited about, is a game called Modern Art that we've never played, but I've heard tons of positive buzz about it, lots of hype. It's now out of print, but they are putting out a second edition, and this is a game from Rainer Knizia, and it's an art auction game that uses real pictures of real artwork, as several of them do, because that's a nice touch. Modern art.
Why make new art when you can just copy someone else's?
Exactly. And you are all museum curators and you're bidding, and there's actually different types of bids that can occur as the game goes on, as well as the value will change of the artwork as time goes on. It's a bidding auction game, but it has such a great reputation. It's that I'm really excited to finally be able to get the chance to try it out for myself.
And this does fall because I know you actually were an art history major, so those sort of art games tend to draw you in because you actually can talk about them.
They have a little bit of they trigger something in my brain that seems like it's cool, even though it's not. We also got to see, they showed off the Godfather board game, the new Eric Lang, based on the film, The Godfather. Has a subtitle. It's like Corleone's Rising or something.
Yeah.
That sounds awful.
You pretty much control different families and trying to get the most money and control just in case something may happen.
Right. Basically, it's not territory control in the traditional.
It looked more worker placement to me.
I guess something like
that. From first glance.
But at least in theme, you are the head of a certain region of New York, and you're like trying to be the most powerful in that realm, which is cool. I think because IDW had a Godfather game.
They did, and I'm pretty sure it had an expansion.
Yeah, not too long ago. Why it seems I'm not sure why The Godfather is coming back. As far as I know, there's no reboot announced or anything like that.
Oh, wait, you didn't hear? They got Dwayne Johnson to play.
I would see that. But I mean, it's cool. It's one of those things that it's nice they have Eric Lang behind it because could easily be a weird kind of cash grab. It's not the first place you would go for a board game adaptation.
No, I mean when we were watching it, it's very weird that Godfather seems like, I mean, I've seen 1 and 2, the big ones, and I'm like, when I'm watching this, I'm thinking like, this could be a board game.
Right. There was a video game that I think I had on the Wii.
I think my same thoughts would still apply.
Yeah, so there's that. Then you also kind of saw they had this little game called Gekaido. That was the one with the...
these big action figures, robots.
Crazy colorful.
Oh, look, what's that TV show that had all the robot fighting?
Transformers?
No, I mean like it's like live... Like it's an actual like...
Voltron. BattleBots.
BattleBots, thank you. It looks something like that. You can roll dice. Apparently, you get to, depending on what you roll, you get a bunch of different attacks. And you just have to roll.
It kind of looked to me something similar to King of Tokyo.
Yeah.
A similar size board on the lighter side, and like you said, rolling dice. But you can get cards and things to make it so you're not dependent on those dice rolls necessarily. So that seemed cool, at least just based on the minis. And then the last real big one that they talked about that they had a whole panel for actually was their Song of Ice and Fire miniatures game.
Right. We talked about this earlier on the show, or not this show, but earlier.
Early on another show. You didn't miss anything. You're only like 5 minutes in. Don't worry. And
we actually have a special preview show.
Yeah, you didn't see that? They talked about how the starter set is going to have Starks and Lannisters. It's going to be 2 factions, but you also have different faction commanders, and each of those commanders have their own tactics cards. So even just from the core set, even using the same faction, there's a lot of more
different strategies.
Yeah, interchangeability. You can make different things happen in that realm. And they said they have plans for big expansions and small expansions. They talked a little bit about how the combat's going to work, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we're gonna see the other houses, big houses. I think.
Yeah, no
There's
question.
3, no 4. I think if I'm.
I mean, there's a bunch. I guess
and
maybe
5 if you include the wall. And I'm sure there'll be mercenary type units, the kinds that can go into any group.
They also hinted a little bit at some kind of, maybe campaign-esque features, but at the very least, it's not necessarily always going to just be kill all of your opponent's guys. There will be more complicated goals than that, which is always cool to see.
I mean, it's definitely curious to see, and Game of Thrones is still very hot right now.
It's hot.
And I mean, I've played the card game with Mark, so I know that you can stretch out many of the units,
Right. I'm curious. I wonder how it will do it, if it'll be in any way impacted by the fact that it's called A Song of Ice and Fire and not Game of Thrones. Will it be a harder sell, or are we at a point now where most people know what that is?
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if we start hearing that a bit more in the show. If we're worried more about the show, but I also feel that the board game crowd tend to drift more to books. I feel we like paper,
especially the miniatures crowd. They're a
so
smart bunch.
I feel calling something a Song of Fire and Ice, like even if you look at the card game, it's still a Game of Thrones. If you see their products for the show, it's Game of Thrones.
Right. It is very interesting, all the different branding aspects. And I guess that's because of licensing stuff. I guess CMON doesn't have the show, but they have the book rights.
Right, and it could also just be maybe like they want to make sure that this is the show. If you say this, that you mean the show. Though I wouldn't be surprised if, like, let's say, whatever the next season, there's another big battle, in the show. I won't say any names because God knows where you are, and I'm sure I'll spoil something. But if, like, right after the episode airs, they put on their site actually like a scenario based on.
That would be cool. They did say that the timeline is it's somewhere. The game takes place somewhere towards the end of season 1, I'd say, or book 1, and from there. It sounds like, at least at the start, they're not putting any kind of restrictions. They said there won't be a time where, like, a character will rotate out because they died and they're in a further.
No, I absolutely don't think you should do that, because I think some of the things they should do is, like, reach back to the Mad King. This can't be spoiled, because this is like episode 1.
That's lore.
Yeah, like the Targaryen Mad King.
Right.
Like making him
that
a
would
unit.
Be cool.
Like, yeah, because that was in essence a large military campaign battle, and I think pulling from those things as well, like the past versions of maybe like the King. Baratheon, was that his name?
The season 1 king, yes.
Yeah.
Baratheon.
But like, because he was much more fit when he's younger in his age, and like he'd probably be a much stronger unit, maybe.
Yeah, there's certainly no shortage of lore they could dig through for this game. That's, I think, coming out later this year. But if you go online, there's places or links below in our description. You can find more detailed talks about this stuff. So. It's cool. There sounds like there's a lot of cool stuff coming from them this year, and I don't know how many years they've been doing the CMON Expo, but it's good for them that they have enough.
Do you think we'll see more of these? Because I know, like, Fantasy Flight has their own little thing.
Fantasy Flight has a thing.
No, they have one for just for their games.
Right, yeah. I'm trying to think, because I know there are a couple other companies who kind of have their own mini...
What are your thoughts on, do you think it's a good thing?
It's cool. It's cool when they do like a low-key. It's a nice way to... And it makes sense from their perspective, because it's... If you just do Gen Con, for instance, you're getting washed up in a sea of news, whereas if you have your own segment, it's sort of like how Nintendo does their Nintendo Directs instead of just being at E3.
Right, but the difference there, I'm curious on your thoughts, maybe it's because it's also video games are digital, is their Directs are videos. Everyone, in essence, is there.
Right.
This is you have to happen, unless you decide to pay the money to fly and go there, I mean, which... might be as big because it doesn't have everyone at Gen Con. Like, Gen Con has everyone, so maybe it's worth the trip to fly across country. Yeah. For some people.
No, it's more niche, and I'd say even compared to Fantasy Flight, who X-Wing alone could easily draw a big crowd. CMON has a lot of great games, but I don't feel like they have really any that are like just one that's that level of like devotion, like with so many expansions.
Is Zombicide still?
Zombicide, no, that's true. Zombicide is there, yeah, and they did talk a little bit about the.
Well, I wasn't sure because Guillotine, so I don't know if they split.
It's still under CMON. So yeah, they definitely have. Yeah, that's true. Some bigger miniatures and expansion.
Some of the
games.
Kickstarters, like
Rising Sun is huge.
Right.
People love Blood Rage.
The one that came before, and I backed it, so I feel really embarrassed.
You better remember.
But it's like the Victorian horror Steam. Like that one seemed because they have two different games in the same universe, so that could be one that builds up.
Yeah. So
Her Majesty, I think that was the name of the first one, but
okay. Well, Paul, if I can find it, I'll put up a thing or comment and tell us if you know. So I think it's cool. It's definitely cool. If you have the games for it, I'd say why not just do it because it's a great way to show your stuff off to people. One other game announcement that I thought was interesting to talk about, I wanted to bring it up. It's this one called Outpost Siberia from IDW. One of the two designers is John Gilmore of Dead of Winter fame. And
he likes the cold.
He really does. And basically, they described it as a cinematic survival horror experience. I want to.
So you're going to get chased by a bear.
You're a group of specialized researchers. You're drawing from an outpost deck. You can use them as weapons, etc. It's cooperative. New threats can come out, and you're trying to survive. What's interesting about it, really, is that they say, planned to be the first of 4 different games in a series, each one using the same kind of mechanics, but at a different location. They're going to be $19.99 each.
Are they all going to be horror?
All kind of that horror, survival horror.
That's cool. That sort of has makes me think the Forbidden Desert and Island sort of deal. Well, however, I have one issue, judging by the picture I can see here. You can tell me wrong. It looks like a tin.
Well, that's my favorite part of this quote. With the added bonus of a collectible tin. So yeah, they are going in that direction of the.
Not a fan of tins.
Of the tins. No, I feel like no one is, but I get if you're marketing it to perhaps a more casual audience.
Casual people like tins more?
I think it's shinier, and when you see it on a I'm being dead serious.
No, I understand. It's just so funny when you think it, when you say.
When you see it on a shelf, and you're not someone who has to worry about stacking board games, like you only have a few or none, it looks more appealing. It looks more like a toy or a collectible thing than a cardboard box. And so I think that is something to think about. But it's interesting because the game play didn't sound like Forbidden Desert makes perfect sense because that's more of a family game, or like Sushi Go, those kinds of things. This sounds maybe on the lighter side, but not necessarily for the family audience.
Yeah, but I think we're at the point when casual doesn't have to mean family. I mean, with Cards Against Humanity, Apples to Apples, a lot of these games came out in our, I would say, high school youth.
Yeah.
And at this point, we're all old and depressed. So we now have the income to buy this stuff and try to convince friends to come over and play them.
Yeah, I think so. So it does sound cool. I'm curious to hear. I guess they're going to be Outpost, Location will be the other titles. And they're cheap, so if it's fun, it could be a cool.
Now, because I do like the idea of stranded and surviving stuff. It's always fun. I mean, that's how a good horror game usually works. We want to throw our hat into the ring of an area you should do, a train.
Oh yeah, get a train. Outpost train.
Hey, I think that would be an excellent one.
Yeah, it could be. I wonder how different they'll all be also.
That's true. Well, it depends because if you want to keep the mechanics or not. Like, the train would have to be pretty different because you're on a moving object that's more lengthwise.
Right.
So that's why I think that would be a good one.
Pay attention, IDW. We're giving you gold right now. Some Kickstarters this week that I'm somewhat excited to talk about. One of which, we have yet another video game-based Kickstarter.
It's all the rage now.
It's the big thing. Yeah, video games, movies, what have you. This is Deadly Premonition, which is a game that came out a decent length of time ago.
Like PS2 era? I think.
Maybe PS3 era, I think, but yeah, definitely PS3 or later. But it's been around for a while now.
Yeah, that's how apparently my game clock is. It's PlayStation is my game clock.
Well, it has numbers in it, so it's easy to remember, as opposed to like if it was Xbox One.
Are we in GameCube era or Wii era?
Yeah, I don't know what that means. 1, 2, 3, simple.
We're in Atari era.
So, although there's an X in there. At any rate, we have Deadly Premonition. If you aren't familiar with the game, it's very Twin Peaks inspired, and you're basically a detective, and you're going around trying to solve a murder, but there's also kind of some weird combat with monsters and other kinds of supernatural stuff happening.
Things aren't how they seem.
It's sort of a creepy horror-esque mystery game. This is the board game itself. You're all detectives. You all have suspects in front of you.
But they're not your suspects to find out. You're trying to prove they're innocent.
Right. And once you've done that, then you're trying to find out who is the killer in your group, because one person, I think just one, will be the killer. And they're going to be, it sounds like, killing people off almost a werewolf style every once in a while. And you have cards that will do different things, like force people to incriminate one of their suspects, evidence.
Gather evidence and whatnot.
So it sounds like an interesting spin on the hidden role genre to an extent. My chief concern, not even concern.
Right, I want to mention this now. Yeah. One of the reasons why it's his Kickstarter, because I did see it, but I'm like, I don't know anything about the game. I did not play. You said you have dabbled in it.
I have played not a lot, but I do have it.
You have a general concept of
it. And one of the biggest things, I think one of the biggest reasons the game is so popular is for how weird it is.
Right. No, because I remember I Googled it, because I was like, based on it, I'm like, okay. So I Google it, and it shows an image of the box art, and it looks like Silent Hill, kind of, like someone with a bandage over their eyes.
It's like I don't know if you
And then the video was like, we're happy, we're in a card shop.
Have you ever seen Twin Peaks at all? I'm trying to think of it. It's
But at least when I saw the sort of video game, it sort of made me think sort of like Alan Wake.
Yeah, Alan Wake's also very inspired by Twin Peaks. It's that kind of thing where it's like very sort of cheesy, but in a creepy way.
Yeah, no, like I definitely got.
And so that's what I'm wondering about with the game. Is it doesn't seem like there's really a way to translate that atmosphere to a card game. I feel like a lot of that came from the cutscenes in that game and the writing. And so it seems like an interesting choice.
Well, I think it's possible. And like one of the reasons they say that they even suggested, I think that's like to role play your character, like actually in the game. But I definitely think the cards, like there could be just some weird cards in there that just like out of the blue and make you really like, what the?
Yeah, I mean that would definitely go a ways toward it. I didn't see a ton like that in what they showed so far. They haven't. I think they said they're. At the time of this recording, I don't think there's a gameplay video yet, but they're coming out with one, or maybe a rule book. I don't know. So it'll be interesting to see. But if you're a big fan,
right? And we're always a fan of the trader. In sort of a trader mechanic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still kind of on the fence about how fun I think it actually sounds, but I'm intrigued by it.
Right.
I want to try it out. So that's Deadly Premonition, and that is on Kickstarter for $30. That's pretty reasonable. It's not a big miniatures game for once. Let's go $6 cheaper.
Yes.
With one of the best pun names I've ever heard.
Yes, Ursa Minor. That's honestly what made me first drew me to it. You are all bears mining Mount Honeycomb. And pretty much it's whoever gets the most honey wins. And what's cool about it is pretty much the mountain is made of hexagons, but it's actually 3 layers. So you actually build it up random tiles, like on this first, second, third. So you'll be digging around, removing tiles. You're actually mining the mountain.
Well, that's cool.
Before things collapse. And of course you'll have cards like you can push someone away, or you can drop your tile with your workers and move it somewhere else. And the more honey you get, the more workers. So it seemed like just this really fun, silly game. I'm sure filled with bear puns, which always a good thing.
I mean, there's bear meeples, and it looks like a small-ish box. I'm guessing based on that image, but that's nice to have one of those smaller ones for only $24.
And like I said, because the tiles are random, it is gonna have somewhat. Not every game. It's not like you always know. Okay, this point is always the gold.
Right. I love that idea of mining through tiles. That's a cool creative use of space and design work there. Ursa Minor, $24. It's I don't have to say it. It's in the picture.
I knew you were gonna.
I did pick this one, which is not a Bob's Burgers game, by the way, if you're wondering.
It does look like the artwork for that.
Looks a lot like Bob's Burgers. It's called Debatable. Maybe one of the only Kickstarter images I've seen that doesn't have the title of the game on it.
That's true.
It is called Debatable, and it is a debate game. So essentially, we've played debate games before.
No, I mean this really made me think of metagame.
Metagame. There's also like who would win. Even Fun Employed is sort of has aspects of a debate game, but this sounded like it took it in a different place that makes it a little more interesting. You're gonna get cards with a bunch of different topics on it, so the topics are pre-decided.
Well, first someone is the moderator.
Sure.
And no, because that moderator decides the topic.
Choose the topic.
So like it could have, and there's a lot of weird things on there, like should men not be able to vote? Should video games...
alcohol be illegal? It was George Clooney, the best Batman, was one of them. So wide range of subjects.
Right.
And then I think maybe the most interesting thing is the moderator decides who is going to be debating and which side they're on.
Yeah, that's what's interesting, because most of the debate games are usually just debate a topic in which you get to decide how you argue. This really forces you in a corner how to do the debate.
And even more fun if you know your group of friends well. They used an example about alcohol, and where it was should alcohol be illegal? And we have two friends who don't drink, so like you could give them to make them argue against that just for the laughs.
Oh, and we have someone who doesn't drink a lot. We make sure he has to agree with.
Right, and then the other wrinkle is you get strategy cards that, as the debater, tell you is how you should be debating.
Like you have to be super polite, or you have to insult all the time.
So that sounds cool. And then it's if you lose 2 debates, you're out, you're eliminated. But then the eliminated people get to always be the moderators, and everybody always gets to vote on who they think won. So
it's not just the moderator.
It sounds like a really great solution to how some of these debate games, although I enjoy them, can get into a rut.
Like sometimes, like on whoever's the judge, like either you're doomed or you can easily win. This time you have to play to everyone.
Yes, democracy rules in this game. So that's cool, and the art style is pleasant and nice, even if it does look a lot like Bob's Burgers. Why not?
Well, Bob's Burgers is pleasant and nice.
It's pleasant and nice. So that sounds fun. It's $19.
If you haven't guessed from the... Yes. The game is not called $19.
Or free shipping. So those are our Kickstarters. Now, let's hear from the Meeple Gallery. All right. Last week we talked about all those new Star Wars announcements that Fantasy Flight is coming out with. Miklos Fitch says, just waiting for the Imperial Assault app, ... waiting. This is something Fantasy Flight vaguely announced. It's supposed to, I think, come out sometime this year, but they have given very few details on it. But I don't know if we've really talked about it on the show, that I think it's going to be like the Descent app, where it will act as the Overlord or Empire, and you could play a fully cooperative game if you wanted to via the app for Imperial Assault, which is kind of cool.
I mean, my opinion on these. I really do like that, because I think, like Mansion Madness, I love the fact no one is the evil guy anymore, and the app allows it to be a lot more random. And
I do want to get back to our game that we already started, though.
I know. I need to kill you guys.
We were about to go try to find Luke, I think.
No, you found Luke.
Oh, we found Luke, and we're trying to find Han.
And you saved him.
That's right. We had Luke, and yeah, he's
I didn't
good.
get you.
So yeah, hopefully that'll come out. People are waiting for that. Zwara Hellwig left like 5 comments about pointing out different nuances of which ships came from which timelines and stuff like that, and which show. So that's cool if you're interested from that video to know where things came from. For instance, talking about how Imperial Assault kind of mixed some things. I think we noticed when we played they have those Nexu creatures for the
right, and those actually were from.
Which doesn't, in the timeline. Well, I mean, not that they couldn't have existed, but they didn't.
Well, I don't know. We don't know if they went extinct.
Right. So interesting. Check out that video and read some of those comments. That's kind of cool. Rico Cordova had some chimed in about Twilight Struggle. saying again about how, sort of what I said, it's one of those games you have to play a whole bunch of times to get those strategies down, and if you don't have the time for that, it's maybe not as appealing. But no other Twilight Struggle defenders from my scathing. It wasn't scathing at all. I said it was a good game. And then Brett Miller, also known as Galaxy Bear, over on Board Game Geek.
Ah.
Yeah, I don't know how to, because they show your like real name and then you also have a nickname. I don't know what the protocol is for Board Game Geek commenters. Had some interesting comments about Dead of Winter and how I remarked that I felt like The Long Night was a superior version of the original Dead of Winter core set. He disagrees.
Ooh.
He says he owns both, blah, 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 and then he just stopped writing. He just said blah, 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 blah. He says, I get why people say it, but I have to disagree. The characters in the first Dead of Winter are way more solid. The new characters, in his opinion, only work as supplemental. Similarly, the books in the library and the core set are by design better. Characters who can search twice and blueprints that let you search twice are too important mechanically to lose. Those are some of the books from the core set. So if you were to take those out and only have the original, he says you'd be at a disadvantage. He makes a randomized location deck by combining the sets. I personally did a sort of a mix and match, not randomized, but I kind of picked and chose which ones I liked from each set to do it when I combined them. So he says all the extra stuff is cool, but only if you've played a good amount of Dead of Winter already, and it adds to setup time. It makes the game more daunting. He hopes that the new Warring Colonies expansion will be playable with just 2 of the original core set, and you won't need 1 of each. That's interesting. I don't know for sure if it will.
No, I mean that's definitely an interesting thought. I don't think it will be.
Why not?
Because I'm assuming we're still using all the pieces and stuff. And if you use 2 of the same core set, and let's say I got the dog, and I'm fighting you, you have the dog. How do we like? Yeah,
no, that's true. Unless you specifically
or use one deck of the hero.
One deck.
I guess there are enough people.
Split them up. It depends on how much Warring Colonies goes through those cards. I don't know.
But I'm also curious on his thought. He mentioned this double searching the books, and I feel, is that because just the core is designed, or sometimes like this happens plenty of times in video games that the first edition or stuff is overpowered. Like it wasn't supposed to be that good.
Yeah, I mean,
and unlike a video game, you can't nerf it.
It's possible, but I mean, well, personally, Dead of Winter's, I feel hard enough that it's okay. You can have those advantages.
No, I mean, I'm usually when it's cooperative, I don't care. I'm always up for the. But I'm just curious on like.
Yeah, no, it could have been.
Do you think that's why we didn't really see that much in the?
It's kind of a weird situation because this isn't. It's like a soft second edition because the original core set is still widely available. They really are pushing both of them, and you almost never see that. I mean, there certainly are there are standalone sets that you can combine, but it seems like these 2 really are very similar.
It feels more like 2 different monopolies than it does like the 2 different like
almost
Phoenix-born decks.
I guess
or Magic
Ticket to Ride is almost like that with some of their different bases. But yeah, so maybe it's not quite as weird as I think it is, but for some reason it seems weird. But yeah, so I don't know. I wonder.
Because it seems weird, I think, when you look at Ticket to Ride, it's like a whole new map. You're like, okay, I get it, we're in Germany now. But in this, it's different people, but that doesn't really, that feels more like an add-on, not a whole new.
You also have to wonder if maybe they were anticipating, well, we built all these new locations and cards in The Long Night, so if someone's just playing with that set, maybe then those books make less sense, but when you combine them together, they're more important. I don't know, but it is a weird thing. That also was a frustrating experience of deciding how to combine them because, you know, really they're kind of meant to be like you pick and choose a little bit, but because that's such a hassle, I really, as I think many people do, just wanted to have a definitive Dead of Winter game and not have to think before I play, like, which set do I want to pick from this and this. I don't know, but we still haven't tried it out yet. I don't know if it'll be completely unbalanced. I know people have different solutions where they will, like he said, randomly choose from between the two, but that could mean there's like not enough food in there, for instance, if you need more food.
Right, maybe it would be nice if they had like a couple like this is an easy setup, this is a hard setup.
Yeah, that would be appreciated for sure. But
I'm sure people online have written, so you can probably look.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear that it's not unanimous that people prefer one over the other. They both have reason to exist, I suppose. And when Warring Colonies comes out, I don't know, but who's going to buy 2 of the core set?
Well, I think the reason might be like if you only have the Dead of Winter core set, and so do I. Like, remember how we talked about I could have that one and you could have Long Night?
Yeah, that's the only way I see it making sense. Yeah, or otherwise, you better really love Dead of Winter.
Well, no, you just really want to put a lot of searching in those books in there. You want 3 libraries on the field.
You just stack the decks in a weird way that makes no sense by buying multiple sets. Yeah, well, those are all our Meeple Gallery comments for this week. It feels like maybe a bit of a shorter show, but there wasn't a ton of. There was an interesting article. I can't remember who wrote it, of course, which is great.
We'll put a link.
But about the Dune board game. Are you familiar with any of that story? That it was way back in the 70s, and
Travel with us.
Yeah, went out of print. It later got re-implemented as Rex, the Fantasy Flight game, but with some tweaks. And that Dune game is sort of a white whale-ish of board games because it's very hard to find, very expensive, and it sounds like paved the way in some ways for being from the 70s, had a lot of more modern elements to it that board games at that time didn't have. For instance, combat was you like had a secret dial and you revealed them. There wasn't any dice rolling or anything like that. So it sounds to be something interesting to play. I've read like a quarter of Dune, and then I couldn't get through the rest of it. I'm sorry to say.
They need to make like a Fireball Island of Dune, so there's just a giant worm in the center.
Yeah, just because they re-released it, but it just is complete garbage. It's just a Milton Bradley game that no one wants to play. But
hey, we're hitting movies. You never know.
But that's interesting to read about. So maybe check that out. I don't know if you like Dune.
The history for board games.
Yeah, there's some cool gems like that. Or if there's any other articles you want to suggest, you have a question or a comment about board games in general. I know we've got a couple requests now for some top 10-ish lists. So that's something we want to try doing. If you got some suggestions for stuff like that, hopefully we'll get to that in the near future. Leave it all right here in the comment section on YouTube or email us, rollforcrit@gmail.com. Where else are we?
Or nowhere. We just disappeared. No. We are also on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, at Roll for Crit. Of course, we also had The Void. We may also be appearing in Dune games somehow.
Yeah, that would be nice. And then you can always find us at our website, rollforcrit.com, where we sell board games. Don't hold your breath, but we did have some scythes back in stock.
And Mansions.
Recently, in Mansions of Madness 2nd edition. So check that out if there's some good stuff there that you might have been missing. Plus more videos like this one. Until next time, enjoy yourselves. I'm Jonathan Estes.
I'm Will Keeler, and this has been Roll for Crit. Today, Jonathan's magical transformation.
Find out how to grow hair fast in just 1 week's time.
Doctors hate him.
They truly do. I mean, it's partly because I've beaten 9 out of 10 doctors.
9 out of 10 doctors.
9 out of all. So 90% of doctors. I'm gonna kill him. I'm gonna kill him. I will poison you.